Joined now by Cali and Lauren here in the studio. Ladies, you will be really pioneering and leading our coverage of this trial that starts on Monday. This week, though, we've been talking all about jury selection. And of course, this is all in the case of former Grand Rapids police officer Christopher Schurr, charged with killing Patrick Julia just about 3 years ago. So, Cali, you were in the courtroom this week. We're going to start with you. Give us just a brief recap of what we saw happen, what was decided as of this morning.
So over the past, well, really 3 days, they've only really been questioning jurors for 2 days. We saw 47 potential jurors questioned by both Kent County Prosecutor Chris Becker and by Schurr's defense attorney, Matt Bergola. And so, a lot of questions are being asked. And this morning around 11:10, is when they decided on the 14 who will be officially seated as the jury. They were also sworn in, so it's all good to go for Monday.
And, I feel like many people think they have a little bit of a gist on kind of how the jury selection process works. You were there really seeing, as they trickle down from person to person. They called in roughly 200 people. And they go through this process of different, basically, sets of 14, 12 jurors and 2 alternates. What does the questioning look like there? Because I think that's really interesting for people on, how are they picking these folks?
Yeah. So actually, this jury selection was a little bit different than typical jury selections. They actually called in people one by one. They randomized groups of 25, brought them in from the first floor of the Kent County Courthouse to the 10th floor to a separate room. And then again, called them in one by one. So this wasn't a full seating where you had a bunch of people in the jury box. It was just one juror at a time. Made people a little bit anxious. A lot of people did admit, this is a little nerve-wracking, this is a little anxious.
Sure.
And those were questions that, the teams were asking them. If you're anxious now, how's this going to impact you as a juror? One of the main questions was, can you remain fair and impartial in this case? This happened 3 years ago now. All these people are from Kent County. It's not a secret. This has been a very high-profile case.
Sure.
A lot of the jurors have seen some type of media, whether it's a headline, whether it's the body camera video, whether they've read an article about this. And, they're being asked, can you set aside what you've seen to be a fair and impartial juror in the trial?
And I do think that's really interesting because I think we're all learning a lot here in the newsroom about how this process works. I, for one, thought kind of previously that they'd be finding people who didn't know anything about this case, which of course in our community, it's hard to not know at least something about what happened. So interesting that, people can have knowledge on what happened, but have to make that commitment to, being non-biased in the scenario. One topic that was brought up quite a bit, and you talked about it in your story tonight, but the majority of the jurors who were selected are white. It's not a very diverse set of jurors whatsoever. That was a question I think on a lot of people's mind is, diversity-wise, what is this jury going to look like, especially because this was a white police officer and a black man, and how that plays into this case. You were sort of providing some context that, from what you're learning, race is not necessarily supposed to be the focus of this trial, which at least for me kind of surprised me.
Yeah, Becker was telling these jurors that they're really only focusing on, he has to be able to convince them beyond a reasonable doubt of 4 things. And it kind of goes into, was Schurr justified in what he did, or was he not justified in what he did? Did his actions have the intent to kill or cause great bodily harm, which is, basically death, great bodily incapacitation? They were saying there's a lot of evidence that, us as news media has been putting out there that isn't going to be brought up in the trial. That's also why they're asking, something you may have seen in an article online on a Facebook post, it may not necessarily be brought up in court, and a juror can't use that to determine, the outcome of this trial. So I know there's a lot of questions around the circumstances, around, potential warrants that Leoya had out for his arrest prior to this incident, and jurors are being asked to disregard that,
set all of that
and
aside.
really only focus on what happened in those few seconds that we saw on the body camera footage.
And I know you heard from Christopher Schurr's attorney today, Matt Bergola, as you mentioned. We have a clip from an interview that was done with him today at the courthouse just about the topic of race in this trial. Let's take a look at that.
It's hard to tell what the racial makeup is. I don't question people on what their racial makeup is. I mean, you have eyes, you can see what the racial makeup is. but it's really not a concern, and it shouldn't be a concern for either side. What is a concern is, what's been their experience as a citizen of the United States, and whether, because they're going to bring that in to jury deliberations. So whether they're black or white, it doesn't matter as much as what their answers were. And so as far as how we ended up with the composition that we did, I saw the veneer, you guys saw the veneer, maybe you didn't, at least I did. It was a very diverse group, and then they're chosen at random to come on up. I certainly had no way to pick, but and neither did the prosecutor. It's not a race-based crime. Obviously, race is always an issue as part of the fabric of our society, but it's not going to be an issue in the case, other than what the personal experiences of the jurors are. And you can't separate yourself from your experience growing up in the United States, and we're not asking them to do that. But it is what it is. I mean, it's not going to be a legal issue or a factual issue.
And of course, we're always trying to cover every side of everything. Someone else we heard from in the courtroom today was Kent County Commissioner Robert S. Womack, and he has been a real support system for the Lyoya family. And so he was there kind of as that mode of support, I guess, today.
Yeah, he was also there yesterday. I know there was a juror who actually marched with him in a George Floyd march in downtown Grand Rapids in 2020, probably contributing to one of the reasons why that potential juror was dismissed. But yes, Commissioner Womack was in court both days. He said he's not there, to do anything really for the family beyond just have that support, help them get through the legal system. His family, they are Congolese immigrants, and it's difficult navigating the U.S. court system on any level. So he said he's really just there to help bring them through that.
Yeah, we've got a clip from him from that interview at the courthouse as well. We can play that now.
I'm feeling good for the family because Patrick Lyoya's family has waited 3 years, and that's one thing we wanted to see, that this system would not stop it. It's now in the hands of a jury. So for once, an officer is being treated like the rest of the public. You do something this questionable where you have so many people that say you shouldn't have did it. You have some people that think that you have the right to do it because you're a police officer. Well, we want to see a jury try it, and that's one of the biggest things the family asked. And I think people should be happy that it went to trial because it's going to show us a lot about the system. It's going to teach us a lot about our community, our city, and how people feel. I learned a lot just listening to the jurors when they talked about how they felt about policing, how they felt about safety in the community. So I think it's going to be an educational experience at the least for everyone.
And of course, we're covering the trial with every detail, but we're also doing a lot to provide context surrounding the situation as a whole. And Lauren, that's where you sort of come in today in looking at this from the context of a de-escalation expert, a former police officer. Your story aired in our early evening newscast, but break down, what your story was sort of about today and what this person, what context they were able to provide.
So essentially, that's one of the biggest questions as to why this happened and what led to Patrick being shot. And, there's people on both sides who are saying we have to look at the video. Now, this expert I talked to today, former police officer, now has a de-escalation program that he's running nationwide. The focus of that is just to provide context as to what is de-escalation and what that looks like and the process and the steps that you take. And looking from his point of view, he believes that Schurr did all the things that he needed to do to properly de-escalate the situation, and it unfortunately ended the way that it did. But he provides a context to kind of make people understand what the de-escalation process looks like. He calls it the use of force continuum, which essentially means there's steps that someone will take that has authority in a situation to bring that situation down. So he kind of compares it to a bunch of kids fighting and the parents seeing them fight, and first they try to yell at them saying, hey, calm down. Then they might physically get into the situation, and then hopefully that ends. And so he kind of compares that to this situation, that when Schurr arrives to the scene, that he first says, hey, get out the car, stop at the car. I mean, he doesn't say get out the car, he says stay in the car, asking for his license. And then eventually when Patrick Lyoya does not comply, John Riley is his name. He says that Schurr decides to physically get involved in the situation.
Yeah, and I know that this expert watched the video and sort of broke this down play by play. And if you'd like to watch that, that's in Lauren's story from today. And as far as, this was a lengthy interview that was done with this de-escalation expert today. We do have a clip from him just kind of talking about what you were just talking about, sort of those steps, that process, that from his point of view was kind of what happened. We can take a listen to that.
He did everything he could, up to and including non-lethal tools, to try to just safely take this man into custody. He told him to stop 7 times, told him to stop resisting once, told him to let go of the taser 4 times. This man that Chris is fighting with, and I've fought people much bigger than me, it is a very scary thing, especially when you know backup is still seconds away, minutes away. But it's my job to try to take this person into custody. This man was much bigger, larger, stronger, stronger and than Chris. And this has been, this push-pulling drains your energy very, very quickly. And I don't mean to sound melodramatic, but this literally is life or death. There are numerous examples out there on social media of what can happen to police officers when someone decides that they are going to hurt the police officer.
Yeah, and of course, these are a lot of strong words from different experts, different attorneys, different points of view. Some of these things that we're hearing, many people in the community may not agree with, they may agree with. We're trying to provide context from all angles, from different sorts of experts, from those in the courtroom. As we mentioned, at the top of the episode tonight, you ladies are really going to be pioneering our coverage next week. Can you walk us through kind of what you'll both be doing to just offer as much coverage as possible? Lauren, we can start with you.
So I'll be anchoring the coverage for us, and essentially I'll be kind of guiding people through when we have breaks, intermissions, talking to experts during the day, and just trying to explain to people what is happening in the trial from the studio perspective. Cali will actually be on the ground working most of the case,
Yeah.
but we'll be hopefully able to ask some questions. For example, if something is redacted, you may not be able to hear the audio from that part of the case.
Right.
That's where I step in to say this is why you're not hearing something, and just kind of guiding people as to what they're seeing on their screen.
Yeah, and then as Lauren mentioned, Kelly, you're going to be in the courtroom listening to everything and providing, additional context for what Lauren's talking about.
Not exactly in the courtroom. There's a lot of different rules, which would probably take an hour to explain here. But we will be in a courthouse. In the courthouse, we do get our own room as media where we will be able to listen to the trial and break it down. I will be able to cut in, be able to talk to Lauren back here in the studio about what's going on. There's going to be a lot of what lawyers like to call legalese, a lot of words that, normal person wouldn't really understand. Breaking down those big words, what did they mean when they asked this witness a question? What does the witness answer mean? And things like that, just going, almost minute by minute in this trial, trying to figure out, okay, what's going on and what do we think is, going to happen at the end of this?
Yeah, and again, this, we don't know exactly how long it will take, so you ladies will, and the rest of our team, really, this is a huge team effort, will guide through each day and, provide recaps and analysis and all of that. So lots to come. You can take a look here at this graphic for just how best to watch the trial. We'll be streaming everything from gavel to gavel starting this coming Monday, April 28th at 8:30 in the morning. Again, live reporting from inside and outside of the courthouse from Cali and other members of our team. You'll hear from experts and community leaders, as Lauren was mentioning, as everyone watches this trial unfold. You can watch the trial in full only on 13+. You can download on your TV and watch for free. Ladies, thank you so much for the context today. Much more to come. We're going to take a quick break and then we'll talk about some lighter news from today.